shooting. I can't.
Yeah,
I can't handle the
I think it's, you know, it ought to be everybody's choice of whether they do it or not. But you know, the bad guys are the only ones that'll be armed, and they don't care about laws.
Yeah,
that's right.
I'd like tell my parents, like, I'm sick of the bad guys not how to hurt me.
Yeah.
Like, it's not for me to hurt back.
Yeah. No,
like, it's like I have to hand a bear meat with a hand holster when I can't.
I'm a 14-year-old boy that goes to my son's middle school here in Cedar Rapids that was arrested yesterday morning. He was going to gun down school yesterday. And he had a gun and ammunition. And
yep.
His father was arrested at the same time. He had a meth lab in his face.
Oh,
They caught him this morning.
somehow Iowa's the meth lab capital of the world.
I spoke to, I'm going to share with you, so I kind of feel like I do a little bit of work today. I know we talked before, but I went over and talked to the Lynn County Republican Women's Club. That's where we were. And I shared with them, I said, and it's really interesting, and I didn't get a chance to tell you all this when I was over at the university, but, excuse me, my back major. This is the first time that I've really kind of gone through the thought process of looking at people's records, studying what they've done, picking a president. I've never done that before. And let me tell you why. Not because I've been a slug. I mean, because you go all the way back to 1980. There was a Bush on the ticket, except for 96. And so, you know, my decision's pretty made. I'm a Texan. I'm for George H.W. Bush and Reagan, and then I'm for him. And I was for Phil Brown in 96, and Phil didn't make the cut, so Dole was the favorite. He was our guy, and I helped him, and then George W. So you think about it, for, what's that been, 25, 27 years? I really didn't have to sit down and read what people had done, study, kind of through the shaft of the wheat and get down to, you know, and figure out who is it I really am for, who is it I want to put my reputation on, or do I just want to sit back and, you know, kind of let the process take care of itself. And you know, there'll be a lot of people, elected guys in particular, that won't get involved in the primary. It's probably the safe thing to do, but my bottom line was I care about this greatly. I care about our country. I care about not letting Hillary Clinton be the next president.
Hey! Woo!
Okay, two things. Number one, who has got the experience that I'm looking for? And I look at it from a pretty unique perspective. I've had the privilege for 7 years to be the chief executive officer of a pretty big state, and had to make decisions. I've been responsible for 23 million people's welfare, when you really get down to it, the decisions that I've made. So being a governor is a management position. It's a chief executive officer. You got to perform. You are held accountable. I've gone through 2 statewide elections and been elected. So I come at it from which one of these people that are running has the management ability to run America? Who has the ability to go to Washington, D.C. and make it work? Because it ain't working today. They are spending too much money, it takes too long, and they're doing more harm than good. So I look at the candidates, and you know, I got a couple of governors running, got a guy who's run the largest city in the United States. Well, that was intriguing to me, and let me tell you why it was intriguing to me. No offense to Arkansas, no offense to Massachusetts. They're not big states. And managing one of those states is different than managing Texas or California or Florida or New York. As a matter of fact, if you look at budgets, if you just take the budget of New York City, it is larger than except for 2 other states.
Oh, my.
3 other states. Texas, California, New York. Then New York's budget is larger than the other states in the country. So this guy basically managed a state that's got a budget that starts getting comparable with my budget. He has to manage a lot of people. He has to make a lot of management decisions, which that's what I'm looking for. So, okay, how'd you do? And when I look at his record, when he went in, the place was $2.3 billion in debt. When he left, it had an almost $3 billion surplus. Cut taxes 23 times. He reformed their welfare state. He made it a livable city by fighting the crime. But just on the reduced spending, he saved the citizens of New York City $9 billion over the period of time that he was mayor in reduced spending. Spending that they would have had to pay for if Rudy hadn't come in and said, we're going to cut the spending. And the interesting thing for me, particularly going to Washington, D.C. and be the President of the United States, this is an environment that is confrontational, caustic. He did that in a city whose government's basically 90% Democrat, and he's a Republican. Which tells me he's got the ability to bring people together, to get people who don't necessarily agree with him philosophically, and to let's make this work. So it's that management ability that I'm looking for in the president. I want somebody who is a supply side Reagan conservative, and that's Rudy Giuliani. I want somebody who is going to be strong on crime, can stand shoulder to shoulder with me to protect the southern border of our country with Mexico. I want somebody who can, with clarity, with strength, with intellect, fight this war on terror. This is going to be a long war, and it's not going away.
No, that's
I mean, let me tell you, if we elect the Democrats across the board, the war on terror is not going away. It's just going to happen here. And I want the war, and I want the conflict to be over there in their country. I want to stop them over there before they get back over here. And that is the reason that Rudy Giuliani, and I tell him, I said, listen, I know all of the major candidates well. I've served with two of them, the National Governors Association, with Mitt and with Mike. I know John McCain very well. He has come and helped me and worked with me, and I admire him greatly. But when I look at those four and I say, who has the experience? Who's had their boots on the ground doing that work that we want a president to do? Leading this country, managing this country. Who's had that experience? There's only one. Now, there's lots of position papers, and everybody can get up and give a speech about, here's what I would do if I'm elected president of the United States. He's done it. And that, from my perspective, cuts across, and by far, he's the guy who can lead this country. And I finished with this with the ladies, he's the guy that can win. And I said, with all due respect to the others, I never say our guy can't win, any of them. But what I say is he has the best chance to win. He puts more states in play. He gets that northeastern part of the United States, and I might add the northwestern part of the United States, Washington, Oregon. I mean, let me tell you, Hillary Clinton's going to have to go to California and campaign. She's going to have to come to New York and campaign. She can't just, run down to the South and start talking Southern and forget about New York.
Jim Conklin, our chairman for the Wayne County Republican Party, was talking about the money that Hillary has, that her plan was to focus in on 12% of the people. So,
and not have to worry about New York. Not have to worry about California, because I think that there are some of our candidates that just aren't going to play well in those states. They're just not going to create the enthusiasm, the excitement, and they're going to know that. They're going to go to California, raise money, go to New York, raise money. They're not going to spend any money there. I want to make them spend time. I want to make them spend money there, and the way we do it, I think, is with marriage.
So is that why Rudy can? Because I keep hearing that Rudy can win. Is that Is that wise because he's got more states to play?
Yes, sir. Now, don't take this, what I'm looking for in Iowa is just a not showing, There's been a lot of resources here.
For a second.
I've been here probably almost as much as Rudy has been here, but that's okay. This is a delegate count.
Right.
This is a delegate count, and the Iowa voter is a very plugged-in conservative voter, and Rudy knew from the get-go that he was probably going to be facing a pretty good hurdle running against Mike, running against Mitt, because Mitt spent a ton of money here. I mean, he's paper displaced with money.
He was here since November.
$10 million. So
Mike has, and Mike's a great friend of me. I love Mike. I mean, he's like a brother. I just don't think he can win. The fact of the matter is, and I shared that with him. And, he asked me to be his national chairman. About 6 months ago, and I told him, I said, man, I love you like a brother, but I said, just let me slide here. It was a hard conversation to call him and tell him I was Rudy. He was disappointed, a bit frustrated. I still love him. He still loves me.
So I heard when you say that New York was 90% Democratic, so he was able to work with them and bring people together.
Right.
When I hear that, I mean, that's what we got with passionate conservatives. And I know Bush is a fellow Texas governor.
Hey, lay it on, man.
But
you just need to.
The thing is,
you need to be honest about all this stuff.
Right.
I don't worry about hurting my feelings.
The thing that's been killing us has been the spending. Not the military spending, but and I told Andrew Cardell when he was here too.
Yeah, let me share something with you. George Bush was never a fiscal conservative.
Okay.
Never was. Wasn't when he was in Texas. They spent money like it was. Let me tell you, when I inherited the place in 2001, the session of 2001,
right.
Our resources started going down. We had a little bit of a depressed economy. But they had spent money. I mean, 95, 97, 99, George Bush was spending money. I mean, George has never, ever been a fiscal conservative. You agree? There's a guy who's been there. And there's a real difference. And now Karl Rove did a good job of going up there, but they never talked about his spending. They talked about what he did on tort reform, and it was okay. I mean, they did some things in '97 that was, better than what we had. It wasn't anything like we did in 2003. But George was never a fiscal conservative, and I think people thought he was. And
Stephen Clinton said that.
Look, he was better than Al Gore. So the last thing I was going to do is go say.
Yeah, we do.
And history will show you if you go back to Texas and look at our spending, and our spending went right on up in '95, in '97, and in '99. The first time in history, well, first time since World War II, modern history, the general revenue spending went down in Texas was in 2003. In my second session as governor, and it was the first time we had all Republican leadership. Now, in George's defense, in '95 and in '97, he had a Democrat lieutenant governor and a Democrat Speaker of the House. And the governor of Texas does have veto power. And frankly, my criticism is that he should have told those guys, look, you're spending too much money, and I'm going to veto some line items. They make it hard on him in Texas. So in his defense, I will say, but he never went to them and said, y'all quit spending. I know that for a fact. But in 2003, had a Republican speaker, a Republican lieutenant governor, and a Republican governor. And we reduced spending in a state that was growing. Our population growth has been, I want to say, 4 or 5% every year. I mean, we're 1,000 people a day. Yeah. So, I mean, that's money you got to spend on schools, money you got to spend on roads, money you got to spend on health care. I mean, that's...
Did a lot of people stay there after the New Orleans?
About 100, how many we got left? 150,000 came and stayed. They liked it. They came out of the Ninth Ward of New Orleans, and they've been living in squalor and poverty, and they came to Texas and they went, man. Live like this. I ain't going back there.
No.
But anyway, I just want to share that with you. That Rudy's a real fiscal conservative. I mean, he really is. I mean, he is a supply-side Reagan Republican. George Bush is not, and he never was.
He wants every...
George is a pro-life. You know, I will tell you, I think we made an error with that phrase, compassionate conservative.
I don't know. The other comment was, I think the theme of this campaign going forward needs to be that focus in on that fiscal conservatism. And I think I'd like to hear Congress being warned throughout this debate. When I come in there, I'm going to be looking to cut taxes and cut spending.
Here's what he said. He's going after earmarks.
Yeah.
Yep, he's going after earmarks.
5 to 10% reductions in every...
20%.
Yeah, 20%.
Reduction of what he's shooting for. You're right. It's 10 to 15% reduction straight off the bat in their budgets. And he's talking about...
the employees, cutting the employees by half.
And letting... And I want to say, what's the period of time? I want to say in 10 years, you'll have half by, what's the word?
Retired, attrition, yeah.
Attrition. Big word, sounds good. He's for his tax policies.
28% corporate tax rate.
Yep. Lowering the corporate tax rate.
I'll shut up.
Lowering the, what do you call that other,
the death tax, the AMT, alternative minimum
tax, lowering it down to the level we've got now. And there's one other tax, and I can't remember.
Inheritance tax?
No, that's the death tax. Inheritance tax. Just do away with that. There's one more tax, marginal tax rate.
Mm-hmm.
Taking the marginal tax rate and tying it to inflation, where the middle class folks don't get squeezed out as that thing goes up, because it's not tied to inflation. Those four issues are real supply side tax policy, but the spending issue is the bottom line.
That's what we
and you've got to cut the spending.
Smaller government. And
these guys that are, and I'm telling you, Republicans are just as bad as Democrats.
I know.
And that's where you got to have a leader that just is in there and says, you know what, Senator Grassley,